think something too, one of the things I hear a lot of times from parents is I don't have a lot of time. My schedule's tight. I'm running around. Everybody's relying on me, needing me. And so I think to be creative, as you described, versus being a punisher, punishment doesn't take a lot of time. You just react and do the thing, don't think about it. But to be creative in your parenting and to behold grace and mercy and practice love, and that really requires a shift in your thinking. It requires you to be creative, and it takes time to be able to do that.
Great evening.
Oh,
yes,
shoot.
we are
Oh, we
here
live.
in the building at 10:30 at night.
Man,
10:30 at night, we are doing our podcast. Welcome if you guys are up late. You know you really should be in the bed right now. But Cole and I,
somebody up. They
nobody's
up, man.
but we said we are
Yeah.
going to be faithful and committed to putting out content for fathers and people who work with families and people who just need some advice, man, on how to navigate this space. So, Cole, what up, man?
Yes, sir.
And welcome.
I'm in here.
You in here?
I'm in here, man. It's late, but I'm glad we stand committed. You held me to the fire and said, "Nope." Thank you for staying up late with me as I navigate.
Absolutely.
But man, so this is a father's heart, and we talking about issues that are associated with the heart of the father.
Yeah, man.
So man, how you been?
I'm doing real well. My boy's been winning.
Yeah, I know that.
My G-men.
I,
Gotta
you got,
represent the crib, man. The G-men. We balling, man. We going to the Super Bowl, bro.
is that what we doing?
That's what we were talking about. We going to the Super Bowl. That's not the topic for tonight, but we can. But I just want to represent a little bit. I'm just saying. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, for sure. So you might get emotional, right? You think you might cry?
Oh, if we go again,
You cry?
yes, I will. Yes,
Okay.
yes. Loud. Do you need me to do one of those? One of those?
Yeah.
Oh,
I need you to do all that.
Yeah, I'll give you all of that, man. But yeah, man.
So listen.
Welcome, man. Let's tap in, bro.
Well, I mean, part of the reason why I asked you if you're gonna cry, man, because the concept of you always talk about this, how men cry and how men cry differently, and every time I hear it, I'm like, I don't know about that one, because I just cry. So when I'm feeling it, it's just, and I'll tell you, I'm listening. You about to get ready? I might cry, and if I cry in front of you, man, that's a blessing if you get to see me cry. So. So when you talk about men cry differently, I'm really interested in hearing how you really, what does that look like, and then just kind of breaking that down in some type of theory, because I hear it, but I'm not really sure if everybody truly understands when you talk about men cry differently. So I wanted your perspective tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. I came up with that concept, man, a few years back, man, and just come to realization that I really believe that men cry differently, right? Because just looking at men, like one of the biggest narratives that people will talk about, that men with toxic masculinity, and men don't cry, they don't really show emotion, they only show anger or just happy or sad, right? And but working with fathers and working with men in general, hearing the stories, right, where some have physically cried in my office with tears, streaming down their face, but there's been others, man, who has cried, but they cried differently, right? Like um, through their actions of their outward expression of making somewhat bad decisions, or just how they express the feelings and the emotions that they are processing, right? And so some people have a difficult time with physically crying, with tears physically coming, but you have to understand it has to go somewhere, right?
Right.
So you may not physically cry, but you're crying out to get relief. And I
Okay.
realized with that, man, that men sometimes just cry differently. That is not going to be the way that you may be used to of just crying, I want my mom or dad, and just crying out. That crying out, crying differently, man, honestly, can come out being, shutting down, right? Just not even communicating anymore. Just shutting down, just saying, I'm done with the conversation, going in man cave, right? And just isolate themselves. But that is their way of crying, right? And crying out like, I need help. I'm struggling. I don't know how to process this. I saw a video the other day, man, that gave me a very good that was a really great example of someone who probably was crying out for years, but just got to the place where it's like, yo, enough was enough, man. And I really want to share the video, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, let's share, because I think that visual really makes sense when we talk about what does that look like and how men express it, and then we express it diversely too.
Mama crazy?
No. But
Mama,
okay.
then you know you crazy. But I love you.
Jim,
sit
you
down now.
You talking about hiding, right?
I ain't got none. You bring all my skeletons out. You can bring all of them out. 'Cause I don't lie. I don't pretend. I don't live beyond my means. None of that.
What?
No.
Hold on. First of all, hey, cuz, I don't even talk to your mother.
Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about. You dick.
Cause you a weird mama, cuz. You a weird mama. You a weird mama, cuz. You a weird person, cuz. I know I'm weird, cuz. I know I'm weird. Cuz I got it from you. I got it from you.
I was telling him I didn't do that. You guys have weird issues, but counseling helps.
At the end of the day, I'm annoyed, I'm hurt, but it takes two to make it get better.
Can I talk to you though?
So I decided to pull him aside because it's about our relationship as mother and son.
Well, I want to talk to you because I felt like you're my son. I think you was very mistreating of me.
Oh, my mother hurt me every day.
I don't.
You know what I'm saying? When you speak lies or you speak stuff that's not coming from my mouth.
You do things and you don't apologize. Because you cuss me out in my face.
I never did you like you did me and my sister when we was kids.
Hell yeah, I cussed my mom out, man. You know what I'm talking about? Man, you deserve it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like mom do deserve it. I mean, she always messing with me and Bam, but at some point, enough is enough. You know, this is not normal. Like, regular moms don't do this. And after this, it's gonna be a real big boundary because I came from a broken home and I'm trying to break the generational curse. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to have something new happen, something real happen.
Who always been the gratefulest kid and told you I appreciate
You were
that.
grateful until a year ago.
Nope, I just don't take disrespect from my mama because she
I don't
come.
disrespect.
You always disrespect. I grew up in that. I grew
I'm not
up
perfect.
in a total. Oh, you feel what I'm saying? Like I grew up for real hard. You know what I'm saying?
Mama was a pimp. You know what I'm saying? So me and my sister was raised around whores and crack pipes, and this is what you seeing, this is what you finding, is gunshots going on. I thought it was normal.
I'm not gonna ever try to manipulate no situations to my kids up.
I don't.
You do.
No, I don't.
You
I
do.
tell your truth.
But you're not. It's not on you to tell my truth. That you tell your own damn truth. You don't even know all my truths.
Don't you
don't
ever
even know
talk to
all
me
my
like
truths.
that.
You don't even know all
But
my
you
truths.
don't talk to me like that.
I talk with respect. I'm
No,
saying
you
all
don't.
this
You
with
just
respect.
did.
I said, ask you something.
I'm gonna sit right here.
I'm talking a certain way. I'm being a man. She not respecting me as a man because she's
Yes,
telling
I
me
am.
you can't talk like you can't say that. Who
You can.
No, if you don't give respect, you don't get it. I don't care
I'm
who
giving
you
you
are.
respect.
I mean, how much
It's
stuff
not
she
a
tell
cuss
me? She
word.
said, she done told me you. That's disrespectful. I never told
Because
her.
you-
I ain't gonna.
Yeah, and I hang
But
up
you know
on
your
You feel
mama
what I'm saying?
crazy.
No, but
Mama,
okay.
then you know you crazy. But I love you.
Jim,
Cause
sit
you be
down
hiding,
now.
you talking about hiding,
I ain't got none. You bring all my skeletons out. You can bring all of them out. 'Cause I don't lie. I don't pretend. I don't live beyond my means.
Yes, you
None
do.
of that.
What? Hold on. First of all, hey, cuz, I don't even talk to your mother.
Okay, see, that's what I'm talking about. You dick.
Cause you a weird mama,
You
cuz.
dick.
You a weird mama. You a weird mama, cuz. You a weird person,
you're
cuz.
weird.
I know I'm weird, cuz. I know I'm weird. Cause I got it from you. I got it from you.
Hey, what happens, right?
What happened with what?
She really hurt, though. She really...
I'm gonna talk. Me and my sister hurt too.
Wow.
That was a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot to. I mean, well, clearly we can't unpack all that, but
that was a lot, right? But that's my point, man. Um, is that you see where he was hurt, right? I mean, um, and you can see the hurt in him. And his mom never took responsibility for what she did. She just kept pointing to what he was doing. But he was giving her back of the seeds that she sown. And so he
right,
was too young, he couldn't do anything about it.
right,
He was too young to even voice himself. If his mom was a pimp, she was hustling, you know he didn't have a voice.
right.
Because he's seen how she may have treated other people. And so now that he's adult, you see all that pain, bro. And we see the result of the seed sown that us as parents pour into our children, good or bad.
Right. Right. Is my question always boils down to and then I don't think it's anybody's fault, right? Because I hear a lot of people talk about it like, it's her mom needs to be taking more responsibility and accountability. But I often go back to like this idea and concept of like language. It's difficult sometimes at least I've seen it with parents, including myself. It's difficult to maybe own it in the moment when there's a crisis or there's a situation in front of you. So it almost is very difficult to show up in that space remorseful and apologetic, and rightfully so. You think that people can just tap into that, but it's not often easy to do, especially when you think about where the history of his mom and the history of their relationship, and part of me wonders, because when I see some of this stuff, I often ask myself, where do we sit as the observer in terms of passing? And I don't want to say we're passing judgment, but where do we sit in that space when we're watching this play out? And who is responsible for that pain? Is it solely mom's responsibility for the pain that she inflicted and caused based on maybe her lack of information or knowledge, or her own personal experiences sort of manifesting itself in her son and her daughter, and in that moment when he was expressing himself to her, should she had been more, remorseful or understanding? And sometimes I don't necessarily know if people can tap into that in the very moment that the situation is in front of them. So, sometimes I often ask, how do we hold space for being human and making human mistakes? So I don't know. That's kind of the
What you're saying is absolutely correct, right? Is that should always be a level of grace. There should always be a level
yeah.
of grace, but you can have both and,
Okay.
right? You
Okay.
can have both and,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing of me as a father. Is that I know I made mistakes as a young father when I first started out, but I was intentional about doing better.
Yeah.
Right? I was intentional about allowing other men speak into my life. Me knowing that I had men or father issues, I knew it was bigger than me because my kids didn't ask to come here. So I could continue to say, it's my father's fault. The reason why I'm not affectionate towards my wife is my father's fault because I don't know how to communicate with my children. I can keep saying that, but I have to take responsibility, right? So I can hold my dad accountable, right? I can hold him accountable for what he did or didn't do. But at the same time, I then have to take a look at me and what do I do with that information, and how do I move forward? So my thing is, it's just like me working out. Like I work out with a group. There's grace in there for me to sleep in, but it doesn't make it okay, right? Like,
Right.
yes, like yeah, okay, Sean, you slept in, but it's still a consequence for you sleeping in.
Right. No, that's real. I mean, you like what you did to me today when I had to switch the schedule up, and you like, hey, I need you to contact all the folks and just holding me accountable. So that idea of yeah, I understand the grace, but hey, I still need you to be accountable to everybody that's on the team. You know what I'm saying? So
But that's how we grow, right? That's
yeah,
how we
yeah,
grow. We struggle when we don't want to hold each other accountable because we're afraid to step on your toes, and it's not stepping on your toes. If I love you enough, I will call you out on your blind spots because
yeah,
nobody else is calling you out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so it's easier for you to receive it from me or somebody that you respect or whatever the case if you know it's coming from a place of love,
right.
right? That is, you know, it's coming. And I take this from my man George, man. He always say it's not about who's right, it's about what's right.
Mm,
So in that space, they both was trying to make sure that the other person know that they was right.
yeah, yeah,
Instead of like, okay, what's right? So right now, at that moment, his mom should have identified, like, you know what? I do or did at the time, I didn't know any better as a mother on
right,
how to love you. I was only hustling because that was my only way. I wanted you to have a better life. And my only skill set that I believe I had was to hustle. But that wasn't a space and a time for her to justify her behavior. It was her responsibility at that time to say, who does my son need me to be at this moment?
right.
Then we
That's
can
real.
go back and deal with all of my other issues that I need for him to better understand. But who does my son need me to be? What does my son need right now? And she negated that. She negated that moment.
Yeah, and that's a teachable moment too. For I think even for all of us. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's a real teachable moment for all of us to remember and to hold that space in our hearts to question when our children show up in the way that they show up, good, bad, or indifferent, to be able to answer that question or ask ourselves that question. What does my children need me to be right now? What do they need from me right now? And whew,
Yeah.
that's a selfless question.
Yes. And I love
That's
this
self.
right here.
Yeah,
Real good stuff, right? I mean, a lot of us
selfless.
can talk about it. Cole?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's selfless right there.
Right? I mean, I just think it's extremely important, man, for us to identify and recognize, like, yo, we do cry differently. And
Yeah,
crying, and when I say that, man, I'm just like, yo, don't just judge somebody because they acting out, right? That's just their way of crying. That's all I'm saying is that that's their way of crying. So how I was talking to, you know, I had my leadership group the other day with my dads, and that was one of the topics because, you know, one of the dads was talking about how, you know, his children go between his house and the mom's house, and when he come to his house is whole lot of rules and his structure and his discipline. When he go over to the mom's house, is totally different. So when the son came to his crib, you know, the son, you know, broke some rules, you know, so the dad, you know, was being patient as long as he can be patient. And then
okay.
finally he got to a place where he wasn't patient anymore. And then he said some hurtful things that cut his son,
Mm,
that really cut him. Right. And so one of the other dads in the group um, was made a statement almost like, see, that's what I'm talking about. That's the same thing I'm going through when my child go over you know, his mother house. They do this and do that. So me, I'm hearing two things. And I create space to allow these men to complete their thought. I don't want to cut them off to say, no, you're thinking wrong. Right?
right,
I
right.
allowed him, even though I didn't subscribe to his theory, I allowed him to express himself. Right? And then when it was done, I said, okay, there's two things that we need to address here. First, you cutting your son has nothing to do with the rules of what he do at your house and his mom's house. It has
Right.
nothing to do with that.
Nothing.
You cutting him, that's a
Yep.
totally isolated thing. Now was that what your son needed? I understand you're trying to motivate him, but what you said to him could destroy him for the rest of his life.
Right.
So
Right.
there's power in your words. When you say stuff like that, yo, what are you trying to do? Like, who did your son need you to be at that moment?
Yeah. And what's powerful about that too, right, is that I think that's where we as dads have to we talk about not, you know, not being emotional, right? But that was emotional reaction to
Absolutely,
a
bruh.
feeling that that we have as men or as dads. So to be able to check that is really important. So I think that's another aspect of this is that we often talk about that men are not emotional and men don't express emotions. But in actuality, that's not necessarily true because you could have a feeling and then just have a knee jerk reaction that could be that trigger or that ripple effect that causes unintentional consequences that you weren't even trying to do, but you felt something that triggered you to respond in a way to get a certain result that you were aiming for. And I think that's something, oftentimes I don't even think we talk about that as dads around, what happens to us when we're triggered, what happens to us when we feel something that I often used to say things like in my head, my sons are trying to take my position. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm the man, I'm the dad. You can't disrespect me
Yes,
in my
sir.
house.
Yes,
You know
sir.
what I'm saying? Like that whole narrative that I was telling myself inside my head was really some of the trigger points that led to me responding the way that I was responding because I had this whole narrative that wasn't even true. And to even have my son say things like, yo,
And your insecurities.
oh man, absolutely.
And you
Absolutely.
at that moment, right? The
Yeah. Yeah.
same for me is how my wife, said something or reacted or made a face. My thing is like, and I know what I was thinking was like, how dare you? That was basically what I'm saying. How I didn't say it, right? But I'm like, how dare you? So what
Yeah.
is for that? That's my because my wife is very strong. And so because I couldn't tame her,
Mm,
because I'm gonna say it again, because I couldn't
that's real.
tame her, I had an issue. And then when I wasn't making more money than her,
Ooh, you had another issue.
there was another issue. So
That ego was just acting
come
out,
on,
wasn't it?
right? So my perception of what a man was wrong. It was based off of my money, me being stronger, all of that stuff, but not loving her being my helpmeet, us being partners and collaborators, me seeing value in her, but because I couldn't enjoy the value in her because I was looking through the eyes of a broken boy.
Wow. Wow.
Right? So she fell in love, like I keep it 100, man. She fell in love with a boy. And I had to grow into a man.
Wow.
And so that was a really big thing for me. And just thinking about the dude who I was talking about, what I love most about that exchange is that my man was open for correction. He's open for correction. We was in a safe space for him to express how he felt and to be honest, to say what he did, but us to offer suggestions.
That's powerful.
Hold him accountable and give him some other strategies what he can do in the future. And then we can address him navigating between mom and dad's house. I'm like, that's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
I'm like, have you put yourself in that child situation? Don't just say, oh, because I had to do it. I had to go between my mom and dad's situation. Well, your child is not you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's just an extension. Yeah. But
So
that's
how
not
they
you.
navigate that space is totally different than you. So you can't put, well, when I did it this way. Well, they different, bruh.
Yeah.
They different.
Hmm.
So yeah, Cole, that's what I'll talk about when we
Good.
come.
That's
So that
good.
brother was
That's
crying,
good.
but he was crying differently because he couldn't motivate his child. Bro, I used to spank my daughter, man. I used to spank her when she did things wrong, and I used to use fear to motivate her. And I shared with you before. It wasn't until my boy called me out on it, and it was a struggle with discipline after that because I didn't know how to motivate or discipline her without using fear. So I'm like, man, if
Mm-hmm.
I can't motivate her by fear, what the heck? So now I had to be creative on how to get her to go from here to here. So a lot of it, I had to love her through the circumstance and the situation. He said, "With love, oh man." He said, "With love and kindness have I drawn thee." I am preaching tonight.
Oh boy, here we.
But he did say. But that's what the word said. He said, "With love and kindness have I drawn thee." So why can't I draw my children unto me through love and kindness, man?
Yeah. And I think something too, one of the things I hear a lot of times from parents is I don't have a lot of time. My schedule's tight. I'm running around. Everybody's relying on me, needing me. And so I think to be creative, as you described, versus being a punisher, punishment doesn't take a lot of time. You just react and do the thing, don't think about it. But to be creative in your parenting and to behold grace and mercy and practice love, and that really requires a shift in your thinking. It requires you to be creative, and it takes time to be able to do that. So you might not get some sleep like you want to. You might miss one of the chores that you need to get done, or something that you have in your mind that has to be done before the day ends to create that space for your child. And I think again, it just goes back to that question: what does my child need from me? And I think that as parents, if we can put that in our parenting narrative or in our toolkit to remind ourselves, because I think it is a constant conversation and a constant relationship between me as a dad and me and my own experiences as a child from being parented. So that's a relationship. The son and the father, from my experience, has been two different people, and I've had to raise the boy within me while still at the same time figuring out how to raise my own sons. And so that idea, that relationship requires cultivating and communication and that continuation of consistently showing up for myself and recognizing that I need to also support the boy in me too. So hearing you talk about taking the time to be a creative parent versus being the punisher, that takes a lot of time. And I think that if we can, as parents, we gotta incorporate that in our complex schedules. That loving does require a level of creativity that takes a hell of a lot of time to nurture and cultivate. But with that time is consistency. And if you do it right, you'll move out of the practice of punishing people and move into that space of, like, as you just described it, what does my child need from me? Because now it's automatic. But that's work. That's work you're talking about. I'm just describing it. It took time to get it all out, Shon.
It is. And so I think that moved into our next one. So I have a question for you.
Man,
I need to know if this is legit or not legit.
Oh, here we go.
Y'all can help me out. So this is the legit or not legit for the night. No, it's a serious one.
I'm with you. They always be serious.
Is it legit or not legit when a family member asks for money and you, as the spouse, give it to them without discussing it with your partner? Is it legit or not legit? Because some people have their own bank accounts, right?
They got their loose.
So some people have their own bank accounts. Like, every couple, they may have one joint or they may have separate. So my thing is it legit or not legit to be able to lend money to somebody without discussing it with your spouse if you have money in your own bank account?
Here's what I had somebody tell me. You know what I'm saying? Don't ever spend your last, and always have a secret stash. Don't ever spend your last and always have a secret stash. Now, over time, I was prescribing to that. I'm like, yes, you gotta have, and I would say it. You better make sure you don't spend your last and da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? And have you a secret stash. And then somebody pointed out to me, you do know the person that's giving you that wisdom is single.
I bet
they ain't married. They don't. They're not in any committed relationships, and so. When I started unpacking that a little bit, I was like, oh, what does that have to do with anything? But I hear that prescription breeds this whole concept of you know, what's mine and that belongs to me, and I can't necessarily trust because I have to have this secret stash, and I never know if you really gonna be there for me. So what that helped me understand, especially when you're talking about equally yoking people together and financially, you define how finances work and the importance of communication. Yeah, I don't necessarily think or learn that is legit to do. I think you need to be sharing those kinds of that communications about finances with your partner, because what you might find happening if you don't share that with your accountability partner is that you might be doing this not realizing that this person is why are you giving them money, you know what I'm saying? So
other,
you might
the guy or the woman who's lending the money out there is like, yo, it's my money, it's in my account, it's my money.
Ooh.
So why can't I?
Well, so yeah, see, you know, here's what I'm learning. I can't answer that question because I ain't in them kind of situations. So someone can look at me and like, bro, you can't really speak on that because you're not accountable to anybody when it comes to the finances, right?
Okay.
So part of me just going off.
But you still said it's not legit. Your thought is.
But I feel like it's not legit. You know what I'm saying? Like we need to talk about that.
Well,
who did this, Sean? Who did this?
No, that was just I came up for the legit or not legit. No, so I'll tell you from mine.
Is it legit?
No, it's not legit.
Why? And let me hear from your perspective.
Well, to me, it's not legit because me personally.
Okay.
Me and my wife are definitely one. We are definitely best friends. So the thing about it is that I want her to be involved in any decision I make. And so I may already be in my mind that I'm going to give it to the person. But I bring it to her like, yo, what do you think?
Okay. So you say, what do you think versus saying, hey, this is what I do?
No, in my mind, because this is the thing, is that we've been together and been down this line long enough to know how the other person is going to respond. If she brings something to me, out of courtesy, she know that I trust that whatever decision she make, that I believe that she making the best decision.
Okay.
Vice versa. She know that I'm not going to today. This John is not going to make a decision that I don't think is best for our family. It's not going to be a self-made or selfish decision. Now, early on, I would do it and she wouldn't know anything about it, or she'll find out, times later. But anytime I make a major decision or or lending or whatever the case, I definitely bring it up to her because we are one. I just want her to know what I'm doing, right? So just
that makes sense.
I mean,
that makes sense.
So we are. We both know what's popping. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We both know where it's at. If, like, man, that was such and such is no longer in the account. She know where it's at.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's how we operate today. We wasn't always like this because of me, but today that's how we operate is that, yeah, we are in agreement. Like, I wanted a dog for Christmas, right? I want my cane corso. The kids know, they all excited, everybody excited. And so I've been around here talking. So we went away last weekend and we talked about it. And she was just like, yo, I don't think it's best. Right? So I could have been like, you got your little dog? I told you I want mine and I'm getting it. Yeah. That's my dog. But no, I'm like, okay. Bad as I want it, I'm like, all right, I'll fall back. But I want to have this discussion again next year.
Okay. Wow.
Right? So I hold off because what's important is for me not to just disregard her feelings and her concerns. Vice versa.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
Well, man, that's a whole nother topic. But you know what? That's not legit. You gotta talk to you. So I support that. All right. Well, listen, everybody, man. Shon, it was good checking in with you, brother. You know what I'm saying? Another father's podcast, another Heart of the Father podcast. It's late. I hope I got that right.
Uh-oh, my boy Arian King going here. Arian, you need to go to sleep. What you doing up this late? Let me see. What Arian talking about? It's my man right here. What he talking about? Arian always dropping jewels. He in my leadership.
Okay.
Let's see. He said, what about when that wife learned her mother money without you knowing it was the same or different? Long as our bills are paid, we're not struggling. I don't see a problem. Your free money is your free money. I got you.
Okay.
I got you. And so that's the beautiful thing about it, man. That's why I tell people, man, when I counsel people that get married, I tell them how we do it. But I'm like, yo, you need to do what's best for you and your family. Don't listen to outside people, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what works for him, and I respect it, right? So as long as that sucker work, man, yo, you make that thing pop.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. No.
All right.
Aaron, man, he good peoples, man. Y'all gonna hear from him, man.
Well, we gotta have him on, man.
Yo, Aaron, we gonna have. Matter of fact, we gonna have
him on.
You know, he gonna be our first father that we gonna have
on.
You see what you did?
Yes, sir.
So I'm gonna bring you on, man. We're gonna set it up to where we gonna have to bring you either in my studio or get you set up somewhere. But we're gonna have you on the podcast, man. We gonna do it. We're gonna be our first father that we have on. And this brother got a wealth of knowledge, man. So yeah, I'm excited.
Let's get him in.
You know what? He's gonna be our first person in 2023.
There we go. So looking forward to it.
Speaking ready, Aaron. We coming for
Let's
you.
go.
All right, man.
All right.